Testing, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, did you guys enjoy? Okay. I mean, I love all of the other families that were helped, but Ariana made the biggest improvement. I heard because she had an amazing coach. But you don't have to take my word for it, because you're actually going to hear from her. Did you know she's here today? Yes. So, of course, I just want to say a quick thank you. Well, not really quick, but a thank you. One, I would have to thank my mom and dad. They're here in the front. And Sylvia and Rhonda, I would be remiss because I'm Nigerian, so if you don't think I'm trouble. But two, the truth is I'm here as a result of the lessons that I learned at home. You know, I hear a lot of people say they didn't get financial education at home, but my 4 sisters and I, we did. You know, we got lessons all the time. Even now, we still get lessons. And so it wasn't odd to me to learn how to budget, how to save, how to maintain my credit. I didn't know really until college that people didn't get that at home when I saw my college roommates struggling with their finances. And they would ask me questions, and then I would call home and ask them questions. And that's how the budget needs to start. So I want to thank them first and foremost. I also want to thank my sisters, the Oliche sisters. Some of y'all have new last names, but you're Oliche sisters first and foremost. Karen, who's the oldest, then Tracy, then Carol, and then the baby Lisa. I want to thank my friends for coming. So many of them are here, especially in the front row. Okay, you see how I do, y'all? I'm peace. What's wrong with me? I want to thank Atlas Films. Kristen, the producer, is here from Atlas Films. So when she reached out to me, I didn't know this was. I don't even know if you knew that Kristen and Netflix had bought it yet, but when she reached out to me, I was like, this just sounds like a great project to get the word out about financial education. And I said yes, and and this happened. So Kristen is here, so we're going to hear from her later as well. I want to thank Part 2 Pictures. They are also a production company that helped to make this film happen. I want to thank my dream catchers. There's over 2 million women worldwide. And some of them are here in this room. We have chapters all over the country, New York, New Jersey, Long Island. I also want to thank my dream builders. Those are women who are part of my online school. And I want to just give the biggest thanks to my team. I call them the Unicorn Squad, right? So if you work with me, you know that you also work like a Nigerian, which means we have an expectation of excellence, which means it's hard. We have fun, but it's a lot of work. And I have an expectation of excellence because I bring excellence to the table, and I want you to stand right next to me bringing excellence, and the Unicorn Squad has yet to disappoint me. They are here in the back, although they are really the ones that made it happen. Akeisha's here, Logan is here, Rose is here, Tamika's here. Who else did I miss? Don't let me miss somebody. Daphne's here, right? And so I just want to thank them, because without them, this doesn't just happen. This is team, this is family, this is community. So with that, one, because I know some of y'all have kids, so if you're gonna stay for the panel, fill in the seats in the front, get on close. And if you are headed out, don't leave without getting the book. So what's so awesome is that I believe in pouring back into my community. So there is a Black-owned bookstore right here in Newark called Source of Knowledge. I've been going to Source of Knowledge since, right? And what I love about Source of Knowledge is that they're one of the few Black businesses, or maybe even the only, that owns the building that they're in. Let that sink in. So, everybody loves Newark now, but it was Newark when we bought that building. And it has not been easy to hold on to that building. I know. But they have, and as a result, we have this amazing bookstore that is filled with books from Black authors. I mean, if you have Black children, you're looking for children's books, like my children's book right here, Happy Birthday, Mom and More, also available for sale out there. They have it. If you're looking for any kind of book that you can think of, they have it. They're right downtown, and they're just an amazing bookstore just to walk through. So without further ado, we're going to have our panel. So I'm going to introduce our host first. I always say Arenze's name wrong. He's like, how can you be Nigerian? You seem like you got that Arinze, he is, I said he's my cousin, but honestly, because he's Nigerian, he's an attorney, because you know we always do the most. He's an attorney, Ivy League graduated, right? Smart. And then low key, he also used to rap back in the day, talented. We remember. We remember. So he's gonna be our host for today. So Eric, come on up to the stage. We also have Kristen Lazur. Am I saying your last name right? Yes, Kristen Lazur. So Kristen is the producer. She works at Atlas Films, and she's the one who contacted me. She's the producer of this film, and so Kristen's here to answer some questions as well. And Ariana, did you hear me yet? Oh, there she is, Ariana. So yes, the star, the one, the only. We have to catch up. She's here as well. I mean, I just want to thank her so much. Ariana, to you. And I forgot to thank you because you were so open and vulnerable. And the truth is, so many of us have been in your shoes, and we just want to thank you for sharing your story with us. All right. So if you're watching digitally, I don't know, where's the camera? Where's the camera? Watching digitally, we'll take questions from YouTube. YouTube over there as well, but we'll take questions here. So I'm going to let Arinze interview us for a little bit, and we'll take some Q&A for the audience. We'll have like 2 mics floating around. We have our mic runners. Do you guys have mics? I'm gonna pick the mic runner, Aikisha. You're one. Oh, she's like, me? Yes, you. Who else could be a mic runner? Who else is back there? What'd you say? Tamika. Okay, so they'll be our mic runner, so they'll hold the mic and you guys can ask us questions. Thank you.
Tiffany, you were hilarious. Can we give it a round? Tiffany! Represent with the green on it. Maybe you guys think represents money, but it does represent Nigeria. So it's a pleasure. My name is Arinze Onuga, and Tiffany, it's a pleasure to host this and be a part of this. That was a wonderful, wonderful film. So I have so many questions. But I do want to start with Kristen because you're the producer behind this whole show. Please, give us the background. How did you get involved in all this? Where did the idea come from? And lay it all out because I think that'd be a great way to start off this conversation.
So we did know it was Netflix when we kept you top secret information, right? So we were approached by another production company and by Netflix, and they felt like there wasn't a lot of content in the personal finance space, and they wanted us to develop something. So we developed a concept, and it was about 6 months before they finally said, okay, we like this, let's move forward. At that point, we had reached out to Tiffany and the other coaches just to sort of test interest. The idea was we wanted to find 4 coaches who weren't cheap, right? They didn't want it to feel like you're being judged, but somebody who had been there had the, I always say, we didn't want the Columbia MBAs, which my husband gets mad when I say that because it's a Columbia MBA. But we wanted just real people who had been through their own personal finance journey, and instead of preaching and judging, were just sharing their tips that were super accessible. And that's sort of how it came about.
And how did you find the fabulous Tiffany?
Well, she's not hard to find. She was a GMA, and her book had just come out. But to me, she was a no-brainer. I mean, the idea was, again, because we also wanted it to be really accessible. We wanted people to not be turned off, because I think the reason people are turned off from the topic in general is because they don't understand it. It feels sort of overwhelming. And when she says at the beginning of the film that she's the preschool teacher of personal finance, we were bingo, that's what we want. So that was it.
It's interesting because it's such an overwhelming kind of topic for many people, right? You saw how emotional it got, but it's something that we all have to deal with every single day, right? Tiffany, have you ever had the idea of doing something like this? Is it when the idea came and was brought to you? One, is that the first time something like this ever came to you? And then 2, did you ever think about presenting it on a bigger screen like this?
So, I've been approached a lot of times to do shows and films and things, but oftentimes like the underlying tone is one of like shame. You know, I had one production company approach me, and it was open, and then they sent me a contract, and it said something line in it that said, you know, by signing this contract, you agreed that we might be able to make up stories about you and to publicly shame you and your family members. And I was like, wait, what? So then I wrote the producer back, and I said, what is this contract? And she said, oh, I'm so sorry, it's the wrong one. This is for like the people that we're gonna be helping on the show. I'm like, wait, so this is the contract? And I thought, I don't want to be a part of something like that, you know? And so I've been approached, but it wasn't the right time, it wasn't the right company. But yes, I would love, if anybody's watching, I'd love to have my own show. Yeah, I would, because I think financial education should be scary, you know? And quite honestly, to quote one of my mentees, Verna, that financial education for so long has been stale, pale, and male. And I think that there needs to be diversity, because if you see people that you can say, that can be me too. It's not lost on me that, you know, I'm a Black woman, Ariana is Dominican, right? Dominican, Kristen is a white woman, Aries is a Black male. This is what it ought to look like, everyone. You know, that we ought to be represented equally.
That's my stage now. Ariana. I feel like I know you. I feel like we should go out and grab some food and hang out. We should meet my family, meet my kids. Like you weren't trying to be a character. You just were a lovable person when we watched you. And I'm so interested to hear, like, how did you kind of get wrapped in this whole thing? I mean, they chose 4 people, right? I mean, there's so many people that need this help. And how did you become selected? And what made you say, you know what, I'm going to do it, and not only am I willing to do it, but I'm willing to be vulnerable and honest while I do it?
So I have no idea. I had been following for years. I even had her first like workbook about how to, the one that's the paperback. Yes, that one. And when I saw this, I had been on a financial journey for a while and failed miserably at it. So I was like, okay, this is an opportunity. So I told my husband I had applied, and he was like, you're gonna get it. He's like, Anna, this is what happens to you. You do ridiculous things like this, and you wind up getting selected. I'm like, Andrew, we have almost a million people. I there's no way it's gonna happen. And I got a call, I got an email from the production company. They're like, we want to do an interview. I'm like, oh, okay, sure, let's do this. And yeah, I got selected. And then, so the vulnerability really came from me realizing that without being honest about what was happening, it wasn't gonna get any better. Like I had swept it under the rug for so long that there just wasn't any more space for that. Like I actually wanted this to change how I looked at money. Right? So like for it to be successful, I really needed to like put everything into it.
And, you know, a lot of, like, one of the things that I saw that everybody was going through was there was this like pause. Like, you could tell there was a wall that you almost had to overcome in order to really make the change, right? So the dude teased, right? When Ross was like, all right, why don't you put in 10 racks? And he was like, you know, I'm gonna do 1,000, right? So everybody laughed during that part. And I felt it, right? Like 10 racks? Come on, Ross, like that's aggressive. Even for him, who started off with a nice, $1.7 million check for entering into the league. That's a lot of money. But then at the end of it, right now he's like, I want to do 10 racks every whatever, right? The transition happens, but there's this wall that we have to get through, and you kind of got through that wall, right? And Tiffany guided you through that. But what is it that you think took to say, you know what, like I'm gonna get past the point of discomfort? And I wonder if you feel like you hit it personally in your life to say, it's time to go. I also wonder if being a part of this was such a monumental thing that also helped you get over it. But I would like to hear from your perspective, what was it that made you say, you know what, I think I can get past and start really making a significant difference? that story at the end that showed how much you were saving, I mean, that's very impressive.
Thank you. I think it was a combination of everything. I think it was the movie came at the right place at the right time in my life. I had, like I said, I tried and failed to fix my finances on my own, and it wasn't working. And then I could never figure out why I couldn't budget, right? I could never figure out like why I would get overwhelmed looking at the spreadsheet of numbers. I like numbers. I'm a number person. Like I like organization and optimization and automation for like when I work. But for whatever reason, it didn't click that I can do the same thing for my money. And like really, truly something as simple as automating my money and having those different buckets and having that money flow without a second thought, like really, truly changed like what I was doing. I didn't have to think about it. It's like doing the budgeting for me. Like at the end of the month, there wasn't like any kind of reconciliation that had to happen with the numbers, right? It's like, this is what happens. And if I feel like something's a little off, I can readjust those percentages and then be on track again. Like there wasn't, it became very easy for me, right? Like Tiffany made it easy, where it wasn't I can't hear say that.
But Tiffany, you know, I feel that because, I mean, everybody was good on that show, but you know, Tiffany, you kind of doing well. My wife, she goes black box. My wife texted me, she was like, "Big, go ahead, but better than Tiffany." Like she's the chico. But you basically turned her life into a bunch of subscriptions that were helpful. You know what I mean? Like it was an automatic debit going into the right spots, and out of all tools to be effective on how to save, like that's a damn good way of getting done. How long have you been showing folks that kind of automatic process, and would you describe it as the most effective way that you've seen over the course of however long you've been doing this business, several years now? Have you seen the most effective way to get people to actually have it? Or you know, are there other things that you're finding have been like your top 1 or 2 ways to get people safe better?
Well, it's been about 15 years, so I know because I look 15. But because I started off on myself. Like I started like the not so great recession, 2009, 10. So many of us struggled. I did too. I lost my job as a teacher. I was working right here in Newark. I was working for a child care center. They lost their funding, nonprofit based, and I was not expecting to lose my job because teaching typically is recession proof. But I lost my job, and by then I had bought a condo, so I couldn't afford my mortgage anymore. I was in credit card debt because I was a victim of a credit card scam. Just like a year prior, that left me $35,000 in credit card debt, and I had just finished my master's, so that left me another $52,000 in debt. So I had the house at $220,000, the credit card at $35,000, master program $52,000, and then no job. And so that's why I related so much to you, Aaron, because I know what it feels like to drown and feel like I didn't think that. And I remember I was just turning 30. I was 29, turning 30, and I thought, is this what life is just going to be like moving forward? It just doesn't get better than this. How can it? I'm so far under. And the thing that I really, we didn't see it as much, but Ari and I worked on in the beginning was releasing the shame. You know, because shame shields solutions. And as long as you're carrying that shame, you're not going to be able to fix anything. Because like Ari said, she's a numbers person. But with the shame, she couldn't move past that. So we had to talk about it. I had to share my story. She had to share her story. And she realized that my story was worse than her story. She was like, oh, girl, not me. I can fix this thing, you know? And so, you know, I encourage people to find their shame-sharing partner. Mine is in the back, Linda, my best friend from Louisville. That like I told Linda all that was happening, and she was like, "That's it, girl, we all broke out here." You know? And so once I did that, then I leaned into what I already knew. I grew up learning about budgeting and saving at home, my dad and my mom. You know, we had these lessons, and I knew for a fact that automation is the new discipline. You know, because you get tired, you get weary, you forget, but when you automate things, you don't have to think about them. And so the way I set Ari up was, I call it the budget without budgeting. You know, you go to your HR department, you have them put your money into these specific bank account buckets. And so that way you don't have to worry about budgeting because your saving is being saved. Your bills are being paid from the bills account where that money is landing automatically. And then you can have your bills paid automatically from that account. The money that you spend, the cash money that you spend every month can be landing in that bucket that's attached to your debit card. So you know when you're spending. Like I was laughing when you were at Target and you had the money and you still felt bad about it because you were so used to like, wait, so I actually have this money? So it felt weird to spend money knowing that it was allocated for that, you know? And so like when you budget without budgeting, when you automate the process, then you can really focus on what we should all be focusing on when it comes to our money is to grow wealth. And not like grow wealth like we're going to be millionaires, but meaning growing wealth so you can have a comfortable life and take care of your family. But if you are stressed about paying bills, if you're stressed about paying off debt, then that's where your energy goes. You know, so if you can automate that, then you can put your energy towards starting that business, asking for a raise, negotiating more money, creating wealth enough to make sure that you and your family can be good. So it's been a number of years and I've seen it work on, you know, so many people. And so it's just always a pleasure to see it work again. There's a woman in the back, I don't know if she's still here, but she was like, I might not be able to stay to the back, but because of you, I have a BMW and a car. No, and a house, and a house. I was like, I don't know about that BMW part, but that's cute, girl. No, but honestly, I was like, you know, but that happens a lot. There's a woman right here in Newark that came up to me and she told me, you know, 2 years ago I was homeless and I'm closing on my house this year. You know, and so that's what I did.
See, when people think about like saving money or having money, you always think about what you're sacrificing. You know, people want to like live their life, go to Starbucks, right? Like eat out every day if you want to, and still have a bunch of money in the bank. And I mean, some folks can do that. But when you think about, oh, I got a budget, you ask me, I have to change my whole lifestyle up. Like, I like eating out all the time. I don't even know how to cook. Like it becomes this whole burden to save.
It's not. It's
Right.
a say yes plan.
No. Listen, I'm about to have you back on this. But what you said in the film was about also like find out the things you love, right? And once you think about like, okay, this is something I love. I'm trying to allocate money towards things that I love. And there are a bunch of likes and wants that you're not that beef for actually. Like you could have been okay with that type of gun. Like you ain't need that type of gun, right? And you might get a regular sandwiches with the sandwich and all that. But when you think about what you love and you say, I could want to go to Nigeria, for example, where I want to see the pyramids, like in person, there's no sacrifice actually. Actually, you're making room for the thing you actually love. That was so powerful. And I think that people need to resonate with that.
Let's call it the budget for say yes plan. You know, like let's reframe. Your budget is not there to tell you no. Your budget is like, I want you to think about your budget like your guardian or your mom, right? Like, hey budget, can I go outside to play? Yes, after you finish your homework, or yes, after you save, or yes, after you come back here. You know, like your mom wants to tell you yes, but there are some stipulations that have to be in place so you can maintain that yes. So your budget's not there to tell you no, it's there to tell you yes, when, yes, if, yes, alongside. And so your budget is your say yes plan. It really is your friend to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish.
So, Kristen, back to you. I like that there was a couple in this, right? Which added a whole other dynamic. And I have so many follow-up questions on that, right? But, you know, what was the decision behind saying let's add kind of like a formal couple to this program? And what did you notice as far as the kind of dynamic of, you know, two folks together trying to save and make this thing happen as opposed to like individuals going through their journeys, even though they had spouses, but you know, there was that couple that really stood out as like we're both in this program together.
Yeah, I don't think we ever approached the casting with like, we're just gonna focus on Ari, and then here we'll focus on a couple. When Mr. Money Mustache sent out his casting call, we did get mostly couples. And it was mostly couples who were just working towards early retirement, or like Kim and John just trying to figure out if that was even an option. I think for them, what really resonated for us when we when we cast them is sort of this work-life balance was what they were really struggling with. Like Kim was working and working and grinding and missing her small children growing up, and then was sitting on a substantial amount of money. They were really comfortable, but she thought, what am I doing it for? Right? Because I don't see my kids. And I think a lot of sort of middle class working families, that's something they can really relate to, because we're just told to grind and save and save and save. And if you've got something good going, like lean into it, right? And then you sort of just question that other side of the equation, which is spending time with your family and spending the money that you're earning in a way that maximizes your time together. But yeah, I mean, I think they worked really well together. I don't, they were on the same page right from the beginning. And so, I mean, from a filmmaking standpoint, we might have liked to see a little conflict there, but they were really.
Like it's room for that, a little room for that.
Little housewives of Memphis. No, they were in lockstep, which was nice.
I like how that one, there was a clear path forward. Like they calculated the math of how long, how much they would need in order to retire, and they realized the money they were putting to the side was not enough. Right, so that's when they started selling the house, and so it was like that clear trajectory plan. Tiffany's going to give me the wrap up, but I do want to take this moment to see if anybody in the audience has any questions for anybody up here. Yes, please.
So a mic is coming to you.
Mike is coming to you.
Thank you. The film was tremendous. One, I've known Tiffany, and I had this really powerful conversation with her backstage at an event, and she said, the trick is to make what you used to make in a year in a month, right? And that changed my whole mindset. So it's not just about saving, it's about the earning too that totally blew my mind up. And then when I met her, I saw her again, and I said, I did it. She said, now you gotta do it in a day. I said, okay.
In business, we're not talking about preschool teaching.
In business. And I'm working on that now. But my question is, so much was talked about with debt and really not having debt or paying off debt. But I'm in a position where I'm being told to take on debt. Like, oh, you should take on these, loans or get financed and to invest in your business to grow it. So how do you balance that, not being in debt, but at the same time, I'm being told that to scale your business, you need to take on debt. So just how do you kind of balance that piece? Thank you.
You're welcome, Shakira. I was like, so here's the thing. Not every business needs to go into debt in order to grow. Anybody business owners here? I see a lot of friends in here. I know they have businesses, right? So of the people who have businesses, how many took out a loan in order to, or had to take on some debt in order to grow their business? Okay, it's like less than half, right? So depending on what kind of business you have, right? So my cousin Ike is in the audience. This is Ari's brother. They had a restaurant. And so a restaurant is a physical business. And so it's highly unlikely that you're gonna be able to launch this business without taking on, debt. Did you guys take on debt, Ari, when you launched the business?
We took on investors.
Okay.
So not quite like traditional debt, but people were investors. They got paid back.
Yeah. So so sometimes you just can't do it without bringing in outside money. And then sometimes, depending on your business, if it's a service-based business and you don't have, like for me as a budgetista, my budgetista business is speaking and teaching, and so like I am the product, and so I don't necessarily have to borrow money to do my business. So it depends, and I don't know if you're still a publicist, Shakira, if that's your core business,
So I have communication meetings,
So it depends. I'll say this, that if you are going to take on debt, you should be very, very clear about how you're going to use that money and the return on investment. They call that ROI. So if I take on this money, how am I going to be able to make that money back plus some? If you don't have a clear plan for that, and you're just taking on debt for debt's sake, and that's just not a good idea. So I'm not anti taking on debt, but it's not the first thing I go to. I always ask myself, is there something I can do You know, like I like to go to the bank and Tiffany first. Like, hey Tiff, we can use a little loan. I'm like, what does that look like? In the beginning, it looked like me babysitting and tutoring and making extra money on the side and then loaning it to myself. And so I've got several businesses now, and none of them have taken on debt for. I'm not opposed to it if it makes sense, but it's not my first course of action. But you've been in business for a number of years now, so maybe you're at a space now where that makes sense. Questions in the front?
Another question? Let's go over here.
Hello, do you need me to stand up?
My question is for Ariana, right? How did you address your emotional connection to your money? Because you had mentioned something about that early in the film, so I wanted to know how you addressed that in order to make the strides that you did.
That is a good question. Very slowly, like facing it every day. Like the work with Tiffany definitely helped. The fact that she had very clear ways to communicate what I was feeling. That post-traumatic growth syndrome thing is real. That wasn't a movie line. It's very real. Like talking about my shame, like being vulnerable and finally getting it all out there. Like, yes, very strangely, it was all on the documentary, but like just having it all out there was like that first step. And saying, okay, so it's out there. Now I have to make this better. It's also like the biggest accountability buddy on the planet is having your debt story like on Netflix. People are gonna see you at Target and be like, oh wow! Are you sure that you need that service?
I have a question over here. We're gonna go to the young lady. She has some questions.
So my question was that my mom always told me that if you don't figure out what you're gonna do now, that you might never get to know what you're gonna do, because in a blink of the eye you're gonna be graduating. So my question is there any advice you could give me for when we start college, like any financial advice, just so I can memorize it just for when I get to college.
That's my neighbor, Olivia. Hey, Olivia. So, honestly, Olivia, one of the best things you can do now is because you're going to be what grade? 6th grade, right? So, starting, I think it's like 7th grade, that you can start working toward making sure one that your grades are great, so you can get scholarships. Because ain't nobody trying to pay for that college, right? So scholarships. Your parents already have you in like summer programs, tutoring. These are things that look good when you start to apply for programs, and to make sure that you're proactive, because there's a lot of money out there for students that people leave on the table because they didn't even apply. Like I'll give you an example. My sister, Karen, the oldest. We were going to Montclair State, and she applied for some program, and she was nervous. It paid for like part of school. She was nervous about whether or not she would have gotten it. So when she submitted her application, the woman who was collecting it, she's like, I hope I get it. She's like, oh, you got it. She's like, well, you don't know that for sure. She said, no. We have 5 spots. Only 4 people did it. You said you could have written Mary had a little name on that application. And so I say that too, that when it's time to apply, make that almost like a part-time job for yourself, to apply for opportunities, because so many of them people don't apply for. So get really good grades, apply for scholarships, and make sure that you are also doing activities that are going to help to make you look really attractive for colleges. But you're on the right track. You got great parents. Questions.
I have a question from Instagram for Teach Me T. The question is, what's a great step if your job doesn't offer breaking up your pay?
Okay, that's actually really a great question. So if your job, with Ariana, I had her split it before she gets it, right? So if your job doesn't break up your pay, Teach Me T, you can do it yourself. So your job can have that money land in that one checking account as a attached to your debit card. I like to call that your deposit account. And then you can have the deposit account split the money for you. Like you can literally say, you get paid on the 1st and the 15th, like on the 30th or the 2nd and the 16th, you can automate that your money is split from that account for you. So it can land and be split for you. So you can have your bank account do it for you. So you don't have to wait on your job. It's just easier if your job does it, if you split it before you get it. But I'm a huge company, we're able to do that. So many companies offer that option. So definitely ask before you make that assumption. But if not, have your deposit account, your bank account do that for you. This side is popping. Pass the mic. Everybody's gonna look at
First of all, I just want to say, Tiffany, the way that God's light is shining in you, through you, and around you, can we just... I know they say that favor ain't fear, but I think favor is fear. And so I just want to honor you right now, and to Ariana, to everyone a part of this project. This has just been so beautiful just to witness. But knowing you and seeing you shine this way is just humbling. How fitting that the young person asked the question, because my questions always going to be about our young people. My question is, how do we kind of transition this conversation in this space from financial literacy to financial liberty? I say that because often with the Black, brown, and low income spaces, the language is always, we need to make people more financially literate. But when you are from our communities, we know how to be financially literate, right? We can make a dollar stretch real long as we need to, right? So how do we shift the conversation from being a deficit-based one to an asset-based one? I appreciated the multidimensionality of this film, and that it wasn't just about savings, it's also about your mindset with your money. It was about tackling shame, it was about investing, etc. And so when it comes to young people and how we shift the discourse from financial literacy to financial liberty, and starting young and early with our folks, that's why we give homage to our Assemblywoman who's doing work at the policy level with you. What more can we do as a community to shift that conversation and start it early from literacy to liberty?
This is great, Dorian. And I understand that, like, obviously, couldn't share everything, but Ariana and I talked about, once you kind of like automate that stuff, I want you to focus really on earning. And so she had another job. And so one of the things that I think that we should be shifting in our community is that we should talk. I wish someone told me that I can start a business. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna lie, the pay's really good over here. You know, and that you can take your skill set and you can apply it to something for yourself. Now, are you gonna work harder than if you work for someone else? Absolutely. Don't let people fool you with the ad like, made $1 million while laying on the beach. I'm like, with their laptop, I assure you. You know? And so that one, that we can start a business, right? But also two, so like I have a podcast called Brown Ambition right? So my podcast partner, Mandy Zinfrante, baby. So one of the things that Mandy, so she's a career coach, and one of the things that Mandy coaches on is negotiating, right? And so I don't think that, like, I didn't know when I first started my first job that the number they gave you is not the number you have to accept. So I remember distinctly, I was going to be a preschool teacher in Plainfield, New Jersey. The lady showed me this chart, and she was like, this is you, 0 experience. I was like, yes, that's me. This is you with your bachelor's. I said, okay. She said, you see that number there? $35,000. I said, well, that's what the paper says. The paper says $35,000. So I said, woo, I'll take my $35,000. I guess I'll never move out. I live here now forever, mommy and daddy. And then my dad, he was the CEO of a nonprofit based here in Newark called Newark Tenants Council. Some of your OGs remember Newark Tenants Council. And so it's actually the oldest grassroots organization in the nation. It no longer exists, but he was the CEO there, and they had child care centers here in Newark. And he said, if you really want to be a teacher, we have child care centers here, and we can pay you $39,000. I was like, I'm not great at math, but 39 is more than 35. So I went back to the Plainfield school, and I said, hey, thanks for the offer, but I'm actually going to take this other offer. And the lady was like, no, because I wanted my son to be in your classroom. You seem like you're going to be such a great teacher. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, they're paying me 39. She's like, well, we could do maybe like 38. I was like, wait. The paper. The paper said, and it was like the first time I realized, wait a minute. They can pay you more than what not just doing it through financial education. I took that skill set of teaching and I started a business. I started multiple businesses. But also, too, if you decide to start a business, which is fine, you can make more money where you are. You know, by teaching our young people how to negotiate, how to interview, how to present a strong, compelling argument that they ought to be paid top dollar. People don't even know what top dollar is, because I truly believe that the fundamentals part, the savings, the debt management, the credit, that should be automated so you can then turn your attention toward the other side, which is, like I said, growing wealth. When I say growing wealth, it's not just I want you to make $1 million, meaning making enough money to sustain yourself and your family and to enjoy life, And so that's what I say, that we should be teaching our young people that as well. The fundamentals, but then how do I earn where I am? My bonus daughter, Alyssa, who knows who she is? But she makes paint, she draws, right? So she paints. And poor Uncle Navi, my brother-in-law, has gone to every single painting. She ain't in here. This is where she makes some money. I'm like, that's Terrell, all the paintings. But I'm trying to teach her. But also too, I'm not on TikTok. I'm like, oh, that's for these young people. But I said, you know what? Who's really good at TikTok? Who better than a 15-year-old? So now she's my TikTok manager. She charges me $20 a TikTok. I feel like I'm getting ripped off, but whatever. But because of that, I also pay her enough that we opened up a retirement account for her. And so she knows that half of her money goes into that retirement account and the other half she can keep for herself. And every week we meet up, we do TikToks together. And so I wanted her to learn that, you can earn through, and when I told one of my friends she was doing that for me, and they were like, does she take on other clients? I was like, hold up. We get my TikToks together before we start hiring my people. But she was like, ooh, it's like she makes like $400 a month doing those TikToks with me. Well, that's $400 a month doing those TikToks, right? And so she was like, wait, 2 people is 8? 3 people is, I was like, before long, she's gonna be paying rent. Her mother's gonna be like, you know what? These bills are yours now. No, but you see, you don't have to wait. I don't care how young your kids are. You can start young. My niece Amelia, if she sells me one more dollar painting, she's fine. And I buy her paintings for $1. And the other day I said, Amelia, I have $1. Do you have a painting for me? And she said, yes, but it's more than $1. I was like, how much? She said, I can tell she was trying to say she was her mother. She was like, $5. And I was like, what are you doing? I just took him to Target. She's like looking at like, oh, this dollar's not gonna cut. Because Carol used to take them to the dollar store to get their toys, and then she'd open up to the world of Target. So she never started that. And now Amelia wants $5 for these drawings. I paid it, but I wasn't happy.
Good evening, Tiffany, and on behalf of Superintendent Leon, who was
Yes, I'm
here
sorry.
earlier. Yes, I have a great announcement, and I'm glad that Dorian is here because I'm sure she'll be supportive of this. But we have agreed to purchase 2,500 books for our seniors in the city of New York. And we will also buy 2,500 more books, not only because it is really important for our reciprocal strategic plan to keep it within our community, to grow our own, but it is critically important for our students to definitely learn the value and to understand not only that this is a possibility, this is the reality that has been hidden in so many ways, but it is also the responsibility of everyone, not only in this room, but in our community and to our leadership to make sure that we coach our children accordingly. So,
No, thank you so much. And I'd like to say that with my 8-year-old brain, thank you so much honestly, the Board of Education here in Newark has just been so supportive. And so we really just thank them because for our seniors to have that, but then they invest in me. I started my business here in Newark. I still live here in Newark. I told y'all before, I was born right down the street. And so to invest in me is to invest in all of us. So thank you so much, Maria.
Hi. But the movie was great, and I just wanted to ask Ariana, are you still on your financial journey and following all of the things that you learned throughout this process, and how's that going for you?
I am. It's funny because before the documentary aired and before tonight, I was like a little anxious because I broke my ankle. So we were on a single like income for like 3 or 4 months. So like the debt had come back up and I felt the shame was coming back. And then like a month ago, I was like, forget that. I was like, no, like I sat down, I looked at what I was spending money, what we were spending money on, and then I reset up my automations again. So like, am I as good as I was at the end of the movie? No, but I had like the forethought before getting myself into a really big hole to say like, this is happening again. I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna redo my automations, make sure that they make sense, and move forward.
I just have no quick question for Kristen. As you're watching all of this, were there lessons that you took home, or was like, hold on, let me get my stuff together?
Yes, yeah, so the split it before you get it, the whole film crew was like, yep, we're doing that, we gotta do it, definitely gotta do that. And we all had the little, need it, love it, like it, want it sticker on our debit card too, which I still think about.
It's your bracelet. So if you got those green bracelets, those are your reminder bracelets before you spend money. Do I need it? Do I like it? Wait, do I need it? Do I love it? Do I like it? Do I want it? Those are what those bracelets are for.
And then the Ross Mac thing about inflation, I think obviously inflation has been such a huge topic. I mean, it was starting to be when we filmed and then even more so after we wrapped. But I always think about that, like just put more money in. That's the only way that you're gonna keep up with inflation, put more money into your investment account. So, yeah.
Let's just take like one more question. Two more questions.
So I have a question about the automation, because I've always been scared of automation. I mean, I do it like a little bit, but I've been traumatized by like Sprint taking out 2 payments by accident and like stuff like that. So do you have a suggestion about how do you, like, should we put more in just in case and like, you know, around that, like, because I'm afraid of mistakes happening. And then now I have to go and try to fix it, you know, the whole thing.
No, that's good. And that's what happened to me. So what I learned was the automation I do was on my end, not on their end. Because I forget someone had taken out extra money too, and I didn't have extra money to spare. You know, and then what happened is they took out too much, and then I got an overdraft. So now I owe and I owe. So it was a nightmare. So instead, I don't let companies come into my bank account. I instead tell my bank, you send $15 here, you send $100 there, you send, so, and you don't have to do it. So in the very beginning automation is just to put it into the account, and then you can just manually send it out until you get more comfortable. And then you can automate, but automate out, not automating them coming in. So that's one of the ways to get around it.
Good evening. First, it's actually more of thank you for the idea of putting this together, because I know that finances is like a terrorizing thing for so many of us. And the diversity of the cast was helpful because the overarch of everyone's story being it's your mind and your determination to do something about it. And I thank you so much for your transparency, Ariana, because that is one of those things where you don't want to talk about it, but you know it's necessary. So, and also just that the diversity within the cast and showing that everybody that's been doing this is really dedicated, and it's the mindset and the emotional intelligence coupled with the focus on it. Just hopefully that I see more and participating in it too, because if this is a recession that's coming upon us, then it kind of looks like a repeat and the pivot of that's been the popular word for us, you know, starting businesses and whatnot. So I see that as being like totally integral to all of this.
Kristen, so is there round 2? Kristen, is there round 2? So we got another movie coming?
We have enough content to make a sequel.
Yeah, what's up?
Everyone, after you make the film, everyone's always like, well, what about that scene? What about that?
We just have one more question over here.
Hey, everybody, thank you so much for putting this together and for producing this film. Kristen, I wonder if you have an idea to do this
about small businesses, because that would be equally as brilliant, right? So, hey, we can talk later. I'm a financial journalist in the area. I've had the pleasure of interviewing 3 people, 3 of the 4 in the movie. And Tiff, I wonder from you, and maybe even a little bit from Ariana, a lot of times people have, similarly to post-traumatic, broke syndrome, a lot of times people have the guilt of actually having, right? So how do you coach people around that?
It's hard because I still sometimes feel guilty about doing well, you know, because I don't know, and I'm not really sure why, you know, I have sometimes guilt about doing well because it's not like I don't work hard, but I guess it's also because I know a lot of people who work hard. You know what I mean? Because people would like to pretend as if like, well, if you worked hard, it would be working. I'm like, yeah, that's nice to say, but honestly, I look in the mirror and I know there's a lot of things that don't make it easy for you, whether you work hard or not. You know, there are things stacked against you. You know, there just are. You know, and so how I coach through it is like one, I think about that the abundance is not just about me. So that's what helps me a lot. I think about how I can use it to help my family. You know, so I started there, the immediate family, right? So like I paid off my parents' house. And that's not money I would have ever spent on myself. But when it came to paying off that, it was like my dream. I think felt like every kid's dream one day to be like, I retire you, you know? And to be able to do that, I was like, so that cracked open the door. And then looking after family beyond that. And then asking myself, well, how are my neighbors doing? And then looking at the community at large. And so one of the ways that I've overcome some of that, like, I don't want to say it's shame, but guilt, is to understand that the abundance and the wealth is not just for me, it's supposed to move through me as well, you know? And so how dare I not receive that, you know? Because oh my God, oh, that's cute, that you only want this, and just take that the rest of the way. Sis, it's about you, you know? And so I'm able to pay my unicorn squad really well, right? Like, I can't tell you how many people making 6 figures all the time, you know? And so, and the women look like me. And so, like, you know, so that's what helps to push me forward, is to remind myself that, one, that, you know, that abundance is not just about you, that blessings are you're supposed to enjoy some and then share the rest. And there will not be any rest to share if I don't allow it to come to me, because everyone is not going to be in this position, you know? And then, so knowing that there's great responsibility that comes with it. And then, so that's what, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I still feel guilty sometimes, but that's what keeps me going.
Okay, so that was the last question, right? Do we have time for it? We can keep going all night, right? But I mean, I just want to say, Kristen, thank you for putting together this incredible movie. This is let's show some love to our main character. It is so honest and so real, and you know, watching you was very inspirational, incredibly. You have no idea how many lives you're gonna touch.
Thank you.
And I gotta shout my sis Tiffany. You know, think about standing ovation, please, she deserves it. She deserves it. Tiffany, you are inspiration. I've known you for a very long time, and you've always been the sunshine since day one. Okay, you are so giving, you are so loving, you're honest, you're humble. I mean, my Nigerian parents right here are wildly proud of you, and the whole world is proud of you. Sometimes in life, you know, people are born and you see something in them, and, you know, they don't get a chance to reach their destiny for one reason or another. But when you see that person that actually is living in that destiny, it is a blessing to watch. And I feel like, Tiffany, you are the person that has been able to grasp onto the thing that's making that difference for you and for everybody else. And you are just basking in it with such class and charm and wit and humor.
You deserve all of the abundance that is making its way towards you. So all we hope is that you keep being as fly and as funny as you are. We love you, Tiffany, the Budgetista. You deserve everything you get right now.
I'm gonna take some pictures if you guys still wanna take. I know some people have to wait in line.
So there are a few people that had numbers. Y'all remember your number? So those are gonna be the first people online. Also, the bistro is open if you wanna go downstairs for their drinks and food. If you are a New York dream catcher, and if you don't have to rush out, just stand by. We're gonna take a group picture with Tiffany. If you are a New Jersey dream catcher, we are going to take a group picture with Tiffany. And also, if you are a mentee in a Patreon, Tiffany is your mentee, stand by. We're gonna get a picture with Tiffany so we can post it in our mentee page. Okay, thank you.